Welcome to the deep dive. We are really glad you're here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So for this deep dive, we are tackling a topic that practically every family wrestles with at some point. And honestly, even if you don't have kids, this gets to the absolute core of how human beings develop peak skills.
It's a really critical conversation to have, especially right now.
It is, because our mission today is to unpack the ultimate parenting dilemma, like what actually creates successful kids.
Right.
And we're pulling our insights today from the foundational concepts of a really fascinating project. It's called the Exploration Advantage, Redefining Youth Success Pathways. And specifically, we are examining materials connected to the ACTIQO project.
Which is just a goldmine of data on this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Because let's be honest, if you look around at modern parenting today, the pressure is completely overwhelming.
What's intense?
Right. Like if you want your kids to develop confidence and build skills and eventually succeed in whatever they choose to pursue, the obvious answer just seems to be more.
More of everything.
Yes. We're told we need more activities, more private coaching, more practice. And the biggest rule of all seems to be that you need to start them as early as humanly possible.
Right. The early start.
I mean, we've all been that parent or seen that parent dragging a crying kid into the minivan at 6 a.m. for hockey practice, wondering if we're building character or just
torturing ourselves.
Exactly, torturing everyone involved.
Absolutely feels like a requirement today. But that intense high-pressure environment is exactly where the research asks us to pivot.
Okay.
Because when researchers, psychologists, and high-level coaches actually look closely at how successful people develop their talents, the reality is, well, it's entirely paradigm shifting.
How so?
The classic formula of start early and work hard at one thing, it's fundamentally flawed.
Wow.
Yeah, and it sets up what has really become the central conflict in childhood development today, which is early specialization versus exploration. The data suggests that our default approach of hyper-focusing kids early on might actually be the very thing holding them back.
Okay, let's really unpack this, because for a lot of you listening, this goes against every single thing we've been marketed.
Completely.
So let's define this default mindset of early specialization. Based on the research we're looking at, this is the belief that committing to one single activity as soon as possible is the only guaranteed way to get ahead.
Right, it's that idea that if your child shows an aptitude for kicking a ball at age 4,
they need to be playing year-round travel soccer by age 6.
Exactly, to have any chance of making the high school team, let alone getting a college scholarship.
And we really need to analyze why families fall into this trap, right? Because it doesn't come from a malicious place.
No, not at all. It comes from a deeply loving place. Parents want their children to grow, to develop confidence, and to have the tools to succeed in a highly competitive world.
Of course.
But that well-intentioned desire, it quickly morphs into this sort of flawed math equation. Parents start assuming that the time inputted early in life automatically equals success outputted later.
Ah, I see.
It becomes this rigid, linear calculation where we just assume early specialization is the only ticket to the top.
I hear you, but let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure.
It is really hard not to panic when you scroll through social media and you see a 7-year-old coding an app or an 8-year-old doing Olympic-level gymnastics.
Oh, absolutely.
It genuinely feels like if we don't start them on a specific track right now, today, the door closes forever. So what does the data actually say to that parent?
Well, that panic is incredibly common, and it's usually fueled by highly visible, extreme outliers.
Outliers, okay.
Yeah, the classic example often cited in this field of study is the Tiger Woods model.
Right, the golf prodigy.
Exactly.
Hmm?
He was handed a golf club before he could walk. He specialized immediately, and he became a global icon.
Yeah.
We see that story when we think that is the blueprint.
That's how you do it.
Right. But what the researchers in the Exploration Advantage point out is that the Tiger Woods model is the exception, not the rule. When we actually look at the broader developmental pathways of high performers across sports, arts, sciences, the story completely changes.
Wait, so if early specialization is a trap, what did the majority of these high performers actually do? I mean, did they just get lucky later in life?
Not at all. They didn't just get lucky. They took a fundamentally different path. They explored.
They explored.
Yeah. The research brings in some heavy hitters to back this up. They reference the work of major thinkers in learning and development, like David Epstein and Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh, okay.
And what we find is that the most successful individuals, let's look at a contrasting model. like Roger Federer.
Okay, the tennis legend.
Right. He didn't specialize early.
Mm.
Federer played squash, skiing, wrestling, swimming, skateboarding, basketball.
Wow, that is a lot of sports.
It is. He actively sampled wildly different interests, and he frequently switched directions before eventually settling on tennis much later than his peers.
That active sampling is such a crucial concept. Because as a parent, when your kid says they want to drop piano to try theater or quit baseball to try swimming, the immediate reaction is fear.
Total fear.
We think, oh no, they're quitting, they're falling behind, they're losing the Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours of practice, they need to be great.
Right, we misinterpret that 10,000 hours concept.
Yes. We take it to mean start at age 3, so you hit the hours by age 13.
Precisely. And that misinterpretation causes so much unnecessary stress. The exploration phase is not about aimlessly wandering or just quitting when things get hard. It is active foundation building.
Foundation building.
Yeah. What's fascinating here is the specific mechanics of how this sampling phase accelerates development later on. Children who try multiple diverse activities develop incredible core competencies. First off, they develop significantly broader overall skills.
So let's break down those mechanics for the listener, because I think this is where the real aha moment lives.
Definitely.
How does playing a bunch of random sports actually make you better at one specific sport later?
It comes down to something called skill transfer. Think about it like building a pyramid.
Okay, a pyramid.
Early specialization builds a very narrow tower. It gets tall quickly, but it's fragile.
Right.
Exploration builds a massive wide base. Let's say a child spends a year swimming. They aren't just swimming. They're learning the physics of water, buoyancy, breath control.
Yeah, making sense of their body in space.
Exactly. Then they pivot to martial arts. Because they already developed a deep intuitive sense of body control and balance in the pool, they actually grasp the mechanics of a judo throw faster than a kid who has only ever done martial arts.
That is wild.
They're cross-pollinating their physical intelligence.
That makes so much sense. And the research points out that this doesn't just apply to physical muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
It applies to mental skills and enhanced creativity, too.
Oh, absolutely. Cognitive transfer is huge.
So if a child spends a year in a robotics club, they're learning a very specific analytical way to troubleshoot a broken circuit. And then later, when they're on a basketball court and the opposing team changes their defense, that kid isn't just reacting with basketball drills. They're pulling from a wider mental library.
Yes, exactly.
They're looking at the defense like a broken circuit that needs to be troubleshooted.
That is exactly how the cognitive transfer works. And alongside broader physical and mental skills, this exploration model builds deep resilience.
Resilience.
Yes. Because when you're constantly trying new things, you are regularly putting yourself in a position where you are the absolute beginner. You are the worst one in the room.
Which is terrifying for most people.
It is. But you have to learn how to fail. You learn how to adapt to entirely new environments and how to figure out the unspoken rules of a new team or a new club. You learn how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Which is arguably the most important life skill anyone can have.
Without a doubt. That adaptability is a massive advantage when they finally do choose to specialize later on. And we see this working on a macro scale too. The project materials look at how different countries approach their youth sports systems.
Oh, this part was fascinating.
Yeah, there are highly successful international models, like in Norway, where youth sports are entirely focused on mass participation and exploration.
Just getting everyone involved.
Exactly.
Ugh.
They don't even keep official scores or rank kids until they are teenagers.
No scores at all.
None. They actively delay specialization, yet they produce some of the most dominant Winter Olympic athletes in the world.
That completely dismantles the idea that there's only one correct, highly pressurized timeline for success.
Completely.
I mean, we're practically suffocating kids with early pressure, thinking it's the only way, when entire nations are proving that play and exploration yield better results.
And it leads us to an even deeper revelation about why exploration is so effective.
Okay, what's that?
Because it isn't just about building a broader base of physical or mental skills. The absolute core driver, the secret engine behind all of this, is that exploration gives kids the opportunity to discover what they genuinely enjoy.
And we really cannot overstate how important that word is. Enjoyment.
It's everything.
It sounds so simple, right? Almost too simple to be a strategy for elite success. But how does the research connect a kid having fun to a kid becoming a high performer?
Well, enjoyment is the direct precursor to long-term motivation.
Okay.
We often talk about grit and perseverance, but we forget that grit is incredibly difficult to sustain if you hate what you're doing.
Oh, for sure.
Enjoyment plays a powerful role in whether someone actually sticks with something when it gets difficult.
Yeah.
When a kid is naturally excited about an activity because they chose it and they love it, the entire dynamic changes. They practice more naturally.
It's the difference between you as a parent acting as a drill sergeant, dragging a kid out of bed for a practice they dread,
Right.
versus a kid setting their own alarm because they literally cannot wait to get to the rink or the studio or the lab.
Think about the energy output there. If a child doesn't enjoy the activity, the parent is the engine. The parent has to push the car uphill every single day.
Which is exhausting.
It's
right?
totally exhausting. But if the child finds an activity they genuinely love through exploration, they become their own engine. You don't have to force them to put in the reps because they actually want to do it.
Yeah.
Because they want to do it, they stay engaged far longer, which is when the real deep skill acquisition happens.
So if we look at the bigger picture here, it fundamentally challenges us to rethink what we're even doing with our kids' afternoons and weekends.
It really does.
The project asks a very pointed question. What actually helps kids thrive? And the answer requires a total mindset shift. The goal of childhood activities should not be to optimize performance as early as possible.
That is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of overachieving cultures. But it is true.
I want to say that again for everyone listening because it is so freeing. The goal of those early years is not to optimize performance. Your 6-year-old does not need to be optimized.
Not at all. Instead, the true goal is to provide a runway for them to discover interests that spark curiosity, build confidence, and ignite that long-term intrinsic motivation.
I love that.
Because if you can ignite that natural motivation through enjoyment, the hard work and the skill development will naturally follow.
Okay, so this is all incredibly illuminating in theory.
Sure.
We know early specialization is a trap that leads to burnout and fragile skills. We know exploration builds better foundations, cross-pollinates abilities, and leads to the enjoyment that drives long-term grit.
Yes.
But if I'm a parent and I want to encourage exploration without my kid's schedule turning into total chaos, how do I actually manage that?
That's the big question.
Yeah, how do families put this into practice when the whole world is screaming at them to do more?
This is where the practical application comes in, through a platform and framework detailed in the materials called ACTIQO.
And for those taking notes, I just want to explicitly note the pronunciation there. It's ACTIQO.
Yes, ACTIQO. And it's specifically designed to help families manage this exact shift from blind panic to intentional exploration.
So what is ACTIQO practically? Is it a mental model, a tracker?
It actually acts as both a reflective platform and a framework for decision-making.
Okay.
The core philosophy is moving away from simply filling the calendar with commitments and instead moving toward a practice of filtering and reflecting.
Filtering instead of filling.
Exactly. It encourages parents to step back and actively track data and notice patterns over time across their children's various activities.
So instead of just being the chauffeur rushing blindly from event to event, you become an objective observer of your child's development.
Right.
And ACTIQO gives you 4 distinct metrics to track: time, cost, energy, and enjoyment.
Those 4 metrics are vital because they force you to look at the holistic impact of an activity, not just the perceived prestige of it.
Makes sense.
Time and cost are the objective realities. Every family has limits. How much of your family's actual resources, your weekend hours, your budget, are going into this? That is the baseline data.
Okay, time and cost are easy to track. I can just look at my bank account and my digital calendar to figure those out.
Sure.
But energy and enjoyment feel incredibly subjective. How is a parent supposed to objectively measure those signals?
That is where the active observation comes in. You have to ask very specific questions and look for behavioral signals.
Like what?
Well, for energy, you aren't just looking at physical tiredness. You're looking at emotional depletion versus emotional charging.
Oh, interesting distinction.
Yeah. When they finish the activity, do they have a spark in their eye, even if they're physically exhausted from running around? Does talking about the activity genuinely energize them?
And we have to be brutally honest about the negative signals too, right?
Absolutely. Imagine a kid in a highly competitive gymnastics program. The time and cost are obviously high. But when you start intentionally tracking energy and enjoyment, you might realize she is irritable for 2 full days before every practice.
Oh, wow.
You might notice that the sheer thought of going completely drains her, and she is constantly looking for excuses to miss it.
That changes the whole conversation.
He does.
Because without tracking that, a parent might just say, well, gymnastics is good for her. We've invested a lot of money. She needs to learn not to quit.
Exactly.
But ACTIQO gives you the data to step back and realize that this activity is actively working against the goal of sparking long-term motivation.
Yes. Understanding those negative signals allows families to make much clearer decisions without all the emotional baggage and guilt.
That is huge.
You aren't making decisions based on what the neighbors are doing or what the other parents on the travel team think. You are making decisions based on actual data about what works for your specific child. It allows you to filter out the noise.
I really love that concept of filtering. It takes the pressure off. So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
The big takeaway.
Yeah, the ultimate takeaway from this research, and this is a quote from the source text that I genuinely think needs to be put on a sticky note on every family's fridge, is that success is rarely about doing more. It is often about doing the right things at the right time.
That is the crux of this entire deep dive. Doing more for the sake of doing more is the early specialization trap.
Right.
It leads to burnout, narrow skill sets, and a loss of intrinsic motivation.
Mm.
Finding the right things at the right time requires the patience and the bravery to let your kids explore.
Let's do a quick recap to tie all these threads together for you. We started by dismantling the myth of early specialization.
It's that culturally ingrained idea that locking into one path early and working relentlessly is the only way to succeed.
Yes, and we revealed the exploration advantage. The reality that trying multiple things, switching directions, and actively sampling builds broader, cross-pollinated skills, unmatched adaptability, and deep resilience.
We also discovered that the secret engine driving all of this is enjoyment, which is the only reliable source of long-term motivation. You want to build an engine that runs itself.
And finally, we looked at the ACTIQO framework as a practical tool to track time, cost, energy, and enjoyment. It's a system to help you shift from blindly filling a calendar out of fear to intentionally filtering activities based on what actually energizes your child.
And as we wrap up, I think it is really important to remind you, the listener, that while we've been talking extensively about kids and youth sports, this framework isn't just for childhood.
Oh, such a good point.
The concepts in the Exploration Advantage apply to all of us at every stage of life, exploring new fields, cross-training your brain, pivoting when a career path isn't working, and actively searching for what genuinely energizes us. That is a lifelong strategy for success. We never outgrow the need to discover what sparks our curiosity.
That is so true. It's never too late to try a new path or cross-pollinate your own skills. But before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something to explore on your own that builds entirely on everything we've talked about today regarding active sampling and finding the right fit.
Yes, and it's a bit of a provocative thought. If the research is clear that switching directions and discovering diverse interests are fundamentally necessary to find the activities that spark long-term motivation, does that mean we need to completely redefine our concept of a child quitting an activity?
Wow.
We carry so much heavy, negative cultural baggage around the word quit. We view it as a failure of character. But if a child quits something that actively drains their energy or creates undue stress, isn't that actually a highly successful, positive step forward in their exploration journey?
That is such a powerful question. Is quitting actually just highly effective filtering? Something to seriously think about the next time the calendar feels a little too full or a commitment feels far too heavy. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Exploration Advantage and the ACTIQO framework. We hope it gives you the permission to step off the pressure cooker treadmill, embrace the messy, wonderful path of discovery, and keep exploring.